The Republican contest has become a binary choice between two similarly miscast candidates. You know what? I think I need my glasses for this one. The tone sort of lends itself to a more scholarly look. Mr. Romney is not attracting people who want rationality leavened by romance. Mr. Santorum is repelling people who want politics unmediated by theology. Neither Mr. Romney nor Mr. Santorum looks like a formidable candidate for November. Okay. You know, that's not me. That's not my voice. That's not me talking. That was George Will's latest column. And George Will is the brains of the Republican Party. And that's why I had to use the glasses, because you always look a little smarter, a little more thoughtful. In fact, a little more like George Will if you put your glasses on. George Will may have the only functioning brain left in the Republican Party. He doesn't just want the Republican candidate to be formidable in November. He wants the Republican candidate to beat President Obama and beat him decisively. So what you just heard was an elegant writer's version of panic. George Will and every other professional Republican who knows how to read polls, they're all near panic now because of the purple strategies conducted of likely voters of the 12 battleground states most likely to decide the presidential election. Forget the national polls, forget the California poll. It's the 12 battleground states that matter. Overall, President Obama leads Romney by 4 points among those swing state voters. The president leads Santorum by 2 points within the margin of error. And in Virginia, there is a robo-poll that shows the president now leading Mitt Romney by 6 points and leading Rick Santorum by 8 points. Earlier this month, Virginia voters favored Romney over Obama by 3 points, and Santorum was scoring 4 points ahead of President Obama. The Virginia poll released today was taken after Virginia's Republican Governor Bob McDonnell indicated he would sign legislation that would require women to receive a transvaginal ultrasound before undergoing an abortion. As protests mounted over that highly invasive government action, the Republican governor, who has an eye on the vice presidential slot at the Republican convention yesterday, began his retreat. Mandating an invasive procedure in order to give informed consent is not a proper role for the state. I am requesting that the General Assembly amend this bill to explicitly state that no woman in Virginia will have to undergo a transvaginal ultrasound involuntarily. With Virginia Republicans alienating women and last night's presidential debate spending more time on contraception and Senate procedure than it did on the economy, President Obama today could not resist a bemused reference to the Republican candidates while addressing rising gas prices.
Since it's an election year, they're already dusting off their three-point plan for $2 gas. And I'll save you the suspense. Step 1 is to drill, and step 2 is to drill. And then step 3 is to keep drilling. Well, the American people aren't stupid. They know that's not a plan, especially since we're already drilling. That's a bumper sticker. While there are no silver bullets short term when it comes to gas prices, and anybody who says otherwise isn't telling the truth, I have directed my administration to look for every single area where we can make an impact and help consumers in the months ahead.
Joining me now, Alex Wagner, the host of MSNBC's Now with Alex Wagner, and Chris Hayes, the host of MSNBC's Up with Chris Hayes. Thank you both for joining me tonight. We've seen that George Will is disappointed in the Republican prospects and the Republican candidates at this point. I want to listen now to Rush Limbaugh's take on last night's Republican debate.
I cringed when I heard him say this. Santorum is getting cringed for the team player comment. Romney is immune to any criticism. There isn't any. He hasn't done anything on the federal level. He is outside it. Santorum, Newt, Paul all look like insiders. And, of course, in every primary season, base voters claim to want an outsider. This is an observation. that redounds to Romney's favor, if anybody's watching it in that context.
Alex Wagner, when George Will, the most thoughtful Republican public commentator, and Rush Limbaugh, the least thoughtful Republican public commentator, are both frustrated, the Republican Party's in trouble.
It is, and I don't have a pair of glasses to make me look erudite in saying that, but absolutely. Look, what good has come out of this race so far? Nothing other than numbers for Barack Obama. Last night's debate across the airwaves, as you said, from George Will to Rush Limbaugh, from George Pataki to Mark McKinnon, everybody agrees this was not a good debate for the Republican Party. The word jobs was mentioned 6 times. The word birth control was mentioned 8 times. I don't understand what the priorities are here, but they seem to be like rabid dogs with a bone. They just can't let go of this. This is in a week when you have the leading presidential candidate talking about the crushing of the Judeo-Christian faith by the president, and the satanic verses invoked frequently and repeatedly throughout the week. I don't know what the Republican Party is doing.
Chris Hayes, in that battleground state purple poll, they've had an interesting finding about the primaries, asking the question, is the nominating process strengthening the nominee or weakening the nominee? 23% think it's strengthening the eventual nominee, and 51% got it absolutely right, 53% saying that it is weakening the nominee. I don't know how the nominee can get much weaker, whoever he is, than where they were last night.
Well, I think what's interesting is that there's 2 things that are happening. One is that as the economy improves, the Republicans need to completely recast the strategy by which they're going to go after the president, and now they're banking on gas prices rising in the summer. They're trying to get out ahead of that. There's been this turn to our social issues, although I think there was a huge strategic miscalculation in which a lot of people in the Republican Party thought that would redound to the benefit of Republicans, and it has manifestly not. And so to the point where last night when the issue was brought up, the Republican audience booed, and they were booing the fact it was being brought up because they even now all realize this is no longer good for the Republican Party. And then yet, what was so amazing in terms of what Alex was saying about a dog with a bone, they all basically said, this is silly, let's not talk about it. And then they talked about it. And then they talked about it at great length. So you see that. And then the other thing I think you saw last night that really hurts the Republican Party is wrestling with the Bush legacy. And that's why I think Rick Santorum's turn as frontrunner is so interesting. So far, George W. Bush has been entirely absent from these debates. Rick Santorum has to essentially answer for the Bush record because he was a senator during the Bush years, and he owns the raising the debt ceiling and the No Child Left Behind and the increased deficits. And the party doesn't look very good when it sits and meditates for 2 hours on the record of the previous Republican presidential administration.
I want to talk about one of the peculiar performances last night, and I'm going to have a lot more to say about him later in the show, Ron Paul. There is the developing theory that Ron Paul has become an ally of Mitt Romney, which is fascinating, that the kind of, in a certain sense, most rightward of all the candidates, the so-called libertarian Ron Paul, would be trying to help the most moderate and historically in the past liberal candidate, Mitt Romney. We had the Santorum campaign today saying you have to ask Congressman Paul and Governor Romney what they've got going together. They're really complaining about it now at the Santorum campaign. And then Rand Paul was asked today what he would do if he was offered the vice presidency by Mitt Romney. And he said, I don't know if I can answer that question, but I can say it would be an honor to be considered. Alex, are we getting closer to a clue of what this Ron Paul performance is all about?
Ask not what Ron Paul does. Just go with it, Lawrence. I think they are interesting bedfellows. I use the term bromance lightly, but I think that's what's happening here. We know that their wives are friends. We know that Mitt Romney has offered the use of his private jet and summer home to Ron Paul, who graciously declined. I think there is some strategic calculation here in terms of setting up a path for Rand Paul. I don't think Ron Paul wants a position in Mitt Romney's administration. I do think Mitt Romney has everything to gain here because, look, we know that Ron Paul supporters are younger They're incredibly enthusiastic. They're a part of the GOP base that Mitt Romney has not resonated with at all, that nobody's speaking to. But I remain highly skeptical that any of them are going to follow if Ron Paul does endorse Mitt Romney or give his nod of approval, that they'll go and be Mitt Romney supporters.
What I think is crucial, though, is that Paul is the perfect surrogate to attack Santorum as a big government conservative, which is the line of attack that Romney wants to pursue. Romney is not a very credible person to deliver the message about ideological purity. Ron Paul is a very credible messenger, and that's exactly what he was doing last night.
It is surprising that Ron Paul, because he is credible, is effectively functioning as Mitt Romney's attack dog.
Yes.
Well, I have a conspiracy theory to offer to Ron Paul supporters. They love conspiracy theories, so they might want to think about this one. Ron Paul serves to support the eventual Republican nominee by taking a position way out on the right on many issues that drains off some attention from what would be Santorum support, for example, in a situation like this. Last time around, he did it, and eventually helping to get nominated the most moderate of all the candidates, John McCain. He's doing it again in an effort to help get nominated the most moderate of all the candidates, Mitt Romney, historically moderate anyway. They all seem to be trying to out-conserve each other today. And it seems to me that that's Ron Paul's deal with the Republican Party. You guys let me get on your stage. You guys let me get my 10% of the vote, and I will not interfere in any way with your nominating process of whoever you guys have decided is next in line to get this nomination. Chris, do you think I can get any takers on the Ron Paul conspiracy theory?
You know, that strikes me as a fairly cynical interpretation, although, I mean, it's clearly the case that it seems to me that there are some bonds of personal affection in the case of Romney, and also that Ron Paul, Santorum is the first person he's gone after that he genuinely seems to dislike. I mean, it was evident last night how much, A, he was relishing going after Santorum, B, how much it drove him crazy that Santorum was trying to run away from these votes, which, of course, Ron Paul took the other side on. So I think there's something genuine in what he's doing in this specific part of the campaign.
And I think if you listen to any accounts of Ron Paul's quote-unquote character, this is almost like a sermon he's been giving for decades. I mean, his voting record on all these issues is incredibly consistent. And I don't even know that he cares that much about any kind of, electoral votes. He just really believes in this message. It is convenient for the Mitt Romney campaign, however.
He is, though, the libertarian who will not allow women to make their own choices about their own reproductive rights and choices and medical options. So the consistency, when he said that word consistent and then said, in effect, oh, by the way, I'm the libertarian who opposes abortion in any form, he loses some consistency points there. Alex Wagner of Now and Chris Hayes of Up, thank you both very much for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Lawrence.